All right, welcome to WeatherGod's Wisdom, where we talk about the weather, and yeah, that's it. Other weather-related stuff. So today we're going to be briefly covering a pattern change that is going to set up over the United States over the coming days, and we have this massive trough that's digging in from the Rockies here. You can see the jet stream is now entering the northern third of the continental United States, along with this very deep trough that we have centered over in northern Minnesota and southern Canada. And you can actually see the mid-level moisture is already starting to clear out here, and it's actually already cleared out over central Texas, and it will continue to do so throughout the night. And if you look at the radar imagery out of the Oklahoma subregion, you can see that the surface front is advancing now across the southern portion of Oklahoma and northern, now far north Texas. And this should work its way down to central Texas. You can see central Texas down in here, and you have the surface front that is now on its way. And these are actually bugs that are being pushed ahead of the front, and you can see some showers are starting to develop along the front, but nothing is supposed to be severe tomorrow along this area. And in fact, the Storm Prediction Center does not even have any level of severe being forecast in here, just mostly thunderstorms. And so this is eradicating the long-standing ridge that has been over the southeastern United States and has finally kind of ended this pattern over here in the eastern United States, and it's allowing for more troughs to kind of build in. We have a trough behind this that's loosely there, and we're going to have another kind of just a stream of troughs come through now. The next trough that comes through Texas specifically is not going to be until Friday of next week. But in the meantime, enjoy your cooler temperatures for the better part of this week, and I know I will be. But that is much less important than what we're talking about here in the Western Pacific right now. We've got a developing typhoon, not a typhoon right now, but it is a developing tropical storm that is very likely going to become a typhoon here in a bit, and this is a very unfortunate situation for the Mariana Islands in here. And obviously further down the road, if you look at the forecast for this system, takes it almost due west for the majority of the time and then turns it north, slightly more northwestward. And this is a problem because if you look at the intensity forecast, it already has it as a very powerful typhoon in the coming days. And this is an unfortunate situation because you have the Mariana Islands here that just last year experienced Typhoon U2, and I think they're still recovering from that. But nothing is really in the way of this system, and actually many factors right now are benefiting this system in a major way. If you look at the oceanic heat content in this area, you can see that 20 north line goes through here, and it will largely remain south of that for the better part of this forecast period. And you can see that south of 20 north has very warm oceanic heat content, and this dispels bad news for the Mariana Islands here because it will pretty much go unabated. And actually, if you look at the ship's forecast, intensity forecast probabilities, the rapid intensification probabilities, it has a 29% chance of 70 knot rapid intensification in 48 hours for this part of the forecast period because of the immense favorability that it will be encountering. And you can see that there's not a whole lot of moving air out in front of it. There's a little upper level ridge here that you're seeing or the mid-level ridge that is kind of guiding the storm around it. And it will ultimately turn to the north because it'll start to feel the poleward push as this trough comes in. And I mean, nothing really is stopping this from developing, and it's very unfortunate, obviously for the Mariana Islands, but also down the line. Typically you have this recurve track, but we're worrying right now that this Typhoon Hagibis, I'm trying to get better at pronouncing that, will not recurve until it is too close to the more populated portion of the Honshu Island here in Japan, and could actually track very close to Tokyo. And you can kind of see this play out if you look at the potential vorticity forecast for the system. You can see that there's not a whole lot inhibiting the system, not a whole lot of shear in here. This is a very large anticyclone. You've got winds coming out of the south and west over here, and the winds coming out of the northeast over here, and just this kind of overall anticyclonic flow around this. And you keep pushing it, and you can see that this actually becomes more intense. This outflow channel, this will be a beautiful storm, but unfortunately it will be passing very close to and on top of the Mariana Islands, and maybe hit some of the islands out here that are independent parts of Japan. And you can see that this system really does explode in intensity. Actually, if you look, you can see 926 millibars out here, according to the GFS. This is obviously past 5 days, but if you look at the 250 millibar wind, you can see that it starts to feel the tug of this trough here, and starts to feel the tug of this upper level ridge that it has created in response to the poleward flow, the poleward outflow that it has. And so it pushes it to the north, and unfortunately this may be too late for the Tokyo area. As you can see here, it still feels the westerly push before encountering this more northeasterly push. And so if you look, I think they're sounding out this far, you can see that the net flow is largely out of the south at this point, and on the lower levels you can see it's more eastward, coming out of the southeast, and it's more out of the south in this part in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. And this is not great news for the island of Honshu and the metro area of Tokyo, because this ridge is going to continue to keep pushing it almost due northwest until, and we don't know precisely how close this is going to get, because obviously this is still very far out, but we're kind of seeing hints here that this is going to be a very powerful typhoon by the time it reaches this area. And I mean, you have just a couple frames out of the 5-day forecast. You can see that is already a very powerful typhoon, and if you look at the European model, it's a similar result. Here you have just a good God, a black hole of just massive black hole on the vorticity model. I don't think this is the best way to portray it, but you see 932 millibars in here, not very far off from the GFS forecast, which tends to deepen some of these systems, but it may not be out of reach, as the system is not really looking like it's going to be experiencing much of any inhibition. And you've got this massive moisture pocket of very moist mid-level air that it is in right now, and not a whole lot of dry air out in front of it. Maybe some moderately dry air, but I don't think it's going to be entraining much of that. And the oceanic heat content, along with the net marine instability that's in here, is going to be really good for the system to kind of explode, and we could actually see intensification pretty far in to the typhoon status before it even reaches these islands. And so we're watching this very closely, and if you are on the Mariana Islands, anywhere from Guam all the way north to I think Saipan is the island, I'm not sure, I'd have to go back into researching that. Please do prepare for the absolute worst case scenario for this system, because this is a very, very powerful system and will likely be very powerful by the time it reaches you. And intensity forecasts for the Western Pacific typically are pretty underdone, and you can see that this has, a couple of days before this reaches your area, and so this has a couple days to really get it together. And I don't think that this intensity forecast really is going to hold, and it's probably going to be much stronger than that even. And of course, these are my opinions, and you should always refer to the JTWC and the Pagasa. I don't think they're doing warnings on this yet, but the JTWC for sure on this system. And as always, credit goes to tropicaltidbits.com, NOAA for the satellite imagery that you're seeing here, the and Tom Whitaker, of course. And as always, please do refer to your local National Weather Service offices and National Hurricane Center, and if in the case of international typhoons and such, the JTWC and your local warning center for all the latest updates on Hagibis. And have a safe evening. That's all for me.